So, am I from Wyandotte County? No, I'm not. Actually, I'm from Waco, Texas. Born in, I won't say born and raised, but I was raised in Waco, Texas. And I was privy to play football well enough where I fooled people to think I was good enough to get a scholarship. So I got a scholarship to Prairie View A&M, where I graduated, and wow, all those years later, I ended up here in Kansas City, which happened to be one of the best decisions I ever made. The answer to that question, did I always want to be in education? Good question. The answer there would be yes. The reason why, I love kids, I always did. Working with them, especially with the coaching aspect of it, being young. You know, when you're 21, 22 years old and you want to transfer some of that knowledge that you think you have to kids, yeah, it was a joy working with kids. When I used to do, let's say, volunteer work at the YMCA back home, back in Waco, where I grew up. So that was just a natural transfer to do something of that nature in working with kids. So I just kind of always figured I wanted to be an educator on some level. Yes, education was my major, as a matter of fact, coming out of Prairie View. It kind of gave me a couple of avenues in which I wanted to go, but I knew that education, working with kids, was something I really wanted to do long term, and maybe could, with the blessing of God, carve a career out of it. Well, my journey, my career journey, how did I end up in Kansas? That's coming from Texas. Very, very good question. Coming straight out of Prairie View, I had a college advisor who was very well acquainted with Kansas City, because he had sent a lot of teachers in my major up here to work. And they're still working up here, by the way. So he asked me my senior year, Doug, do you think you want to maybe venture out of state and go to maybe Kansas City? And I said, Mr. Davis, Kansas City? I said, no, I have no interest about going to Kansas City, when I had offers in Houston, Dallas, and things of that sort. And then, you know, one of my friends, to just show you how still immature I was, took me on a dare. He said, oh, Bolden, you're not going to Kansas City. You know, you're going to go and where you safe. I said, oh, yeah, I'll show you. I'm going to go to Kansas City, at least for a couple of years anyway. So I told my wife about it, and we talked about it. She said, Doug, are you sure you want to do this? I said, yeah. I said, I think it's a calling. It wasn't, but that's what I convinced myself of doing. So we came up here, my wife and I, and my little daughter at the time, just 2 years old, my daughter Gail and my wife Dimple. We came up here, and it's a funny thing, when you're starting out, you don't have anything. No furniture, no nothing. I do mean nothing. But thank God that I had a classmate from Prairie View. She had already been up here for about a year. And so we actually housed with her for about 3 months. So we finally found some place and settled down. And then the funny thing about coming to Kansas City was it was kind of traumatic for me coming straight out of college, simply because I was first assigned to go to Coronado, which is now Gloria Smith Middle School. So I got my mindset ready for middle school kids. And then about 2 weeks before the school year started, I get another letter. Doug, you have now been assigned to go to Harmon High School. I about had a fit. I said, oh no, I can't handle high school. I'm doing good to deal with middle school kids. So lo and behold, I ended up at Harmon High School, and I taught woods, I taught drafting, and I taught electronics. And lo and behold, I was there for 13 years, and even was blessed to, at one point, along with the coaching, I finally became a vice principal there. And in less than that 1 year, I was called to go to Northwest Middle School in the middle of the year. And I'm trying to plan for graduation, things of this sort here. And Mr. Engelbrick, my principal at the time, said, Doug, they need you over to Northwest. And of course, you didn't answer the questions you just reported. And of course, Dr. Daniels, who was a superintendent at the time, he said, yeah, Doug, we need you over there. So I went, and I just thought it was something interim or temporary. So I played principal for the time overload. I implemented a few things that I thought would make the school be better. And I guess the staff, students, and the parents liked what I did, and they offered me the job to stay. And I got to tell you, don't tell me that God doesn't work in mysterious ways. I was a bit more ready, I thought, to be a head principal. Less known, I was still trying to get the vice principal thing down. But that's where God placed me, and through a lot of prayer, trust me, that I had some good people to work with over there. We helped slowly but surely change some things around, and just really turned into one of the best decisions again I ever made by going over to Northwest, where Dr. Daniels kind of kept steered me over there to be. So, and from there, I was asked to come to Schlagle. And I said, Doc, I'm just starting to get this Northwest thing down. But they asked me to come, and I came over here to the beautiful halls of Schlagle High School, a lot of tradition. And I knew of Schlagle, of course, being an ex-coach and teacher over at Harmon. So I was very familiar with Schlagle. But I came over here, and lo and behold, 13 years later, I was a principal. And as I would say a lot of times, the extremely proud principal of FL Schlagle High School. And if you see a kid of mine years from now, they would tell you that's how I would greet them in the morning on the PA. This is Mr. Bolden, the extremely proud principal of FL Schlagle High School. And of course, they all thought it was very corny, but you know what? I see these kids now, 10, 15 years later after they graduated, and I see them at a Walmart or a store like that. Hey, there's Mr. Bolden, Mr. 10 Days, the extremely proud principal of FL Schlagle High School. And of course, it's always endearing when you see kids who remember that and have such fondness for you. So yeah, that's one of my many blessings that I had coming over here to Schlagle. And like I said, for 13 years. And to my knowledge, I think I was the longest tenured principal who had been at Schlagle for that amount of time. So that coming over, just checking things out, turned into 13 great years before I actually retired. So that's a little bit of my journey in the USA 500. Coming here, not knowing anything about the city or the school. Let me digress just a little bit. I have to admit, when I left Waco, Texas to Prairie View coming up here, and they said I was going to Kansas City. Well, see, I'm thinking Kansas, Missouri. And I had no idea that there was really a Kansas City, Kansas. So I remember driving here, and I get here, and I happen to be on Minnesota. That's when I first entered Kansas City. So I said, sir, listen, I'm new to the area. Can you direct me to Kansas City where I can go meet my superintendent? He said, Kansas City. He said, son, you right here. You right downtown in Kansas City. I said, no. Kansas City. He said, son, this is Minnesota. The place you're looking for is right down the street. I said, and I get back in the car, and I was totally deflated. I'm thinking I'm going to a big city. And I said, this is Kansas City, Kansas? Oh my God, what have I got myself into? And it was a little bit of levity there just for a minute. I explained it to my wife about how I got the geography wrong, but at the same time, what a blessing. What a blessing to leave Prairie View, fresh out of college, to come here, you spread your roots, and you've been here now. My God, I've been here over 43 years now. So Kansas is home, and I thank God for USA 500, where I had my career. So that's the journey a little bit with me about my time in Kansas City. And it's been nothing but a blessing. Yeah, 13 as a classroom teacher, and then I spent the one as as an administrator. So yeah, 13 seems to be my number. 13 at Harmon, and then 13 finishing out here to end my career here at Schlagle High School. I didn't come from Prairie View, coming straight up here to be and say, here, Doug, on a silver platter, we're going to make you a principal. No, it wasn't anything like that. I put in my time. I was a classroom teacher for a number of years, and put in a time coaching. So I really got to know the kids and the staff very well. So when I made that transition from being a teacher to now assistant principal, it was an easy transition. I already knew the kids, the parents, they already knew me, and I just had a ball because I didn't have all that heavy responsibility. I could just be vice principal, just do my job, visit classrooms and shake the hands of the parents, and I just had a ball. And then they made that fateful move with me going over to Northwest. Not quite. I spent the majority of my time at Harmon being a classroom teacher, and I spent the 1 year being a vice principal before they actually moved me over to Northwest. So I barely got my feet wet as an administrator, and believe me, barely got my feet wet. I just about had a conniption when they asked me to come from Harmon, where I felt very comfortable, now to an area that I had never really worked before or had been before. So it was, you're talking about being like a fish out of water. That was exactly me. But like I said, the community, when I went there, they just wanted some stability, and I was very fortunate and blessed to give them that, and they wanted some direction. And I had a lot of ideas. I just, as an assistant principal, I could never really expound on them like I wanted to. But now I had a chance to play principal. So I put those ideas to action, and they worked for the most part. And boy, I was just really, really, really blessed to come with a staff that was ready to roll up their sleeves and work. So I came into a good situation as a brand new principal. Well, that's a very, very, very good question about how I felt internally about being moved the time that I was here in the district. I started out, I don't know if I shared this with you, but I started out as an experiment, because you have to understand, when I left Harmon, and you got to remember, I really didn't do an interview. They said, Doug, you need to be over there. So the next morning, I go over to Northwest. I meet the staff in the library, and I meet them, and I don't know why really I'm over there. I didn't ask. I just came over just to do the job as best as I saw. And I was an experiment that worked out pretty good, because they really didn't know, because I had, got to keep in mind, I never put in a full year at Harmon. I put in about 3/4 of a year as assistant principal, who was in charge of graduation. And that's what I was working on when they drafted me to go over to Northwest. And then I kind of felt something was up, because my principal, Mr. Ingebrigtsen at the time, I said, Larry, I need to get back over to the school. I said, we got graduation coming up. He said, Doug, I wouldn't worry about it right now. I'm pretty sure Dr. Daniels wants you to stay at Northwest. And I said, come again, what is that? Stay, what do you mean stay? He said, well, they might offer you a contract to stay, and Doug, you need to take it. And I had a very good relationship with Dr. Ingebrigtsen. He pretty much groomed me. He was my mentor, so I took his advice. And again, some of the best advice I ever took, even though I felt I wasn't ready. And again, don't tell me about the power of prayer, about what God can do for you when you feel that you're just not worthy. And I wasn't, but that just shows the power of God, and I hope just working through me to make some changes at the school that really worked out well, because we did a lot of good things for kids over there and staff when I was there. I'm not saying every day was a walk down Primrose Lane. I'm not saying that, but for the most part, had a very good experience at Northwest for the time I was over there. It was a defining moment for me about whether I was going to really be a principal for the future, or somebody who just kind of stayed right there. And I guess that's where I cut my teeth, if I can use that term. And so being moved now from Northwest, now to Schlagle, after starting out at Harmon, I was a little bit frustrated, but at the same time, I was allowed to see the bigger picture. Because one thing about being an administrator or in education period, it's never about you. It's about what's best for the kids. So if my superintendent, my boss, who I had complete confidence in, if he thought I could make more of a bigger impact with the kids, then I trusted him. I said, okay, Dr. Daniels, I will go, and I will be there. And he knew me. I'll serve to the best of my ability. And I don't mind sharing this with you, and I hope I don't come off as being a braggart, but you know, I worked in this district the better part of 32, 33 years. And I had a run of about 12 years or 13 where I never missed a day. And in that 30 some odd years of being here, total, I probably missed about 12 or 13 days in that 32, 33 year time span. It's because I love my job. And for some reason, in my weird head, I thought my school couldn't run without me. So I hope that's not arrogance, but it's just the way I felt. I felt connected to my school. I wanted my kids to see this old ugly face every day. You know, if nothing else, you're gonna see this face and you're gonna hear this voice. So that's how a lot of those relationships were forged. And to this day, they've been lifelong friendships because of the great people and kids that I knew when I got here. That process of going from the classroom to being an administrator, it was part of my program when I was working on my master's. That was part of my program to shadow an administrator on whatever he or she did during the process of a day. And I did that for about a number of weeks, and that all went into my process as far as being evaluated as a future administrator. So you kind of got a real feel for what the administrators do. And even though I was a teacher here at Harmon when I was there, I had a kind of an idea what they did, but it's another thing when you close that door and you're sitting down with the principal and you get behind the nooks and crannies about what's really going on in the school. And I learned a lot there. And having that experience, I felt even more confident. I said, you know, if I'm not careful, I think I can do this. So that's how that transition happened, by being part of my master's program. And then when that time finally occurred, because you have to understand something, which I never shared with you, when I got my master's in education to be an administrator, I didn't go straight to the classroom. And because I love coaching so much. So I coached at least another 2 years before I even seriously considered being an administrator. So when the opportunity finally came, I jumped on it. And I've been in administration ever since. And I just, again, been very blessed, the timing of everything. That's why I just knew that God had a plan for me, because he knew how much I still loved the coaching piece. So he let me get that out of my system. And then getting that out of my system, now I was ready to take on a bigger challenge. And believe me, it was a challenge. But it was something I wanted to do. You know, starting out in education, thinking about that tiered ladder, from being a teacher to a vice principal, and then maybe to the head principal, and then maybe into a superintendent. I can't talk for everybody else, but I can talk for me. That was never my ultimate goal. I just knew I wanted to work with kids, regardless of the level. But I knew starting out being a teacher, and I really loved it. To have kids confide in you and trust you. And a lot of kids that I worked with, they were just like me. And to be very honest with you, I was the very first one in my family that even considered going to college, just don't graduate. So that was something new to my family, the first of that generation to do that. So when I see kids coming up, I was very easy to relate to them, regardless of what their ethnicity was, because you know what? Poor is poor. I don't care where you're from, poor is poor. So I could relate to them very well, but I was very fortunate and blessed in that the teachers that I had coming up, that I hope the teachers now are seeing with the kids today. I had people who believed in me. It didn't matter my mother was a maid. It didn't matter about my father being a truck driver, getting minimum of wages. It didn't matter about that. It didn't matter about my mother having an 8th grade education. They believed in me. And that was huge with me, having somebody believe in me. So they transferred that into me. I always want to show my kids, regardless of who they were, whether it's a great kid or a kid who may be struggling. Hey man, I believe in you, young lady. You're just having a struggle right now, but I believe in you. And that really transferred, I think, well with a lot of kids when I did become a teacher, and certainly when I would become a principal. Because there'd be times kids would come to my office and they would share things with me that they wouldn't share with the teacher or mom and dad. And that came because they knew I was trustworthy, and they knew I was always going to tell them the truth, whether they want to hear it or not. I'm always going to be truthful with them. So it's a little bit of my thought process from being a teacher to a principal to where I ended up. But it was I never started out being, hey, I want to be a principal. I think it's a gradual process of where you want to be challenged more and where you can do more help to the students. I think that's where it came in for me. Well, you know, I had some great mentors coming up. The very first mentor that I had was in the classroom, because how can you think about being an administrator on any level unless you kind of have to take care of that classroom first? understanding the kids, because every kid was not a Leave It to Beaver, if I can use that term. I just dated myself, didn't I? But every kid doesn't come from an ideal home situation. During that time as a teacher, I had been cussed out. I've been called racial slurs. So you have to have the right temperament. And coming out of college, that was something that I was not used to. You know, coming out, you'd be one of, hey, well, you said what? but that was never the case with me anyway, because they were kids. But I had some great colleagues who were teachers. I remember a gentleman by the name of Mr. Martin, who was also a basketball coach over in Harmon. And he just kind of took me under his wing, and he kind of showed me about the temperament that we should have with kids. Also, there was, and I can never forget Shirley Murray, who was the assistant principal over at Harmon, a legend, by the way. She took me under her wing when I was still teaching about working with kids and families and things of that sort. And so I took those mental notes, and what made what they said to me really powerful, it wasn't so much what they said, but what I saw them do. Because anybody can talk a good game, but it's how I saw them treat the kids, treat the parents, treat the staff, and that went a long, long way with me. And even when a teacher or a student messed up, it was never one where they condemned anybody. Hey, you know what, you did mess up, let's work with this to make you better. So that went a long way with me in my, I guess for lack of a better word, my embryonic growth as an administrator, a long way. And I can never forget Dr. Dignified, my principal. Before I even became a principal, he let me come in, talk to him about things, especially when I was working on my master's, and I learned a lot from him. Structure, organization, having goals, all that I pretty much got from him that I still utilized all throughout my career. Of course, I kind of customized it a little bit and put the old Bolden swing on it, but pretty much I learned that, the foundation of all that from him. So I had some great, great mentors. And then last but not least, when I had the chance to be on certain committees and work behind the scenes with Dr. Daniels. Dr. Ray Daniels was just a legend to me. So his compassion for the district, the way that he worked with kids and always kid first with him, which was my philosophy from the get-go. So we meshed very well. So it was very easy for me to follow that type of leadership and take his advice. And people that I really respected in the field, taking their advice as well. And you know, oddly enough, you guess who, you know who was another mentor for me? My parents. They taught me, trust me, they taught me how to talk with them and how to deal with difficult situations. And I can't think of anybody by name, but man, I sure to see their faces right now, especially starting out at Northwest. I had some great, great parental support over there. It's just amazing how much they did help me. And our parents really don't get enough credit, I bet, serving as mentors as well, because my parents taught me and schooled me very well too. So the demographics, back when I was here as principal, it was still pretty much majority black. It was majority black, and it was an ever-increasing Hispanic population. I think those demographics over the years has changed now, but it was mostly the black and white student population at that time. And then I think as I became closer to my end of my tenure here, I started seeing a shift in demographics when it went from being the majority of black and now not so much black as it was other students of color. So yeah, there's been a shift, but starting out, it was primarily the black students who had the majority role in terms of attendance. Well, you know, being a man of color, being a principal who really works in a very diverse ethnic school setting, I thought the one thing that was very, very important for me, yes, I'm a black male, But don't look at me as a black male. I am the principal of FL Schlagle High School. So when you look at me, it was really the blue and gold that you saw. If that makes any sense, maybe I'm too much over the top, but for the kids and staff who knew me back then, they knew I was over the top in terms of my tradition and how I felt about Schlagle. And if we had an issue, the one thing I feel very, very blessed about, if I had a white parent or a Hispanic parent and I made a decision about something, they never looked at it, for the most part, from a race position. They looked at, well, that's Mr. Bolden. He made that decision. We're going to roll with it whether we like it or not. And I feel very blessed that I was able to present that side of me that people believed in, that no, just because I'm black don't mean I'm going to let you go because you're black. Or just because I'm black don't think I'm going to be at you because you're not of my color. No, I was very conscientious about who I was and my position. I know I couldn't be, have people saying, well, I saw Mr. Bolden drunk at the nightclub. No, you never saw me there. You saw me at church. So I tried to give them and I'm not saying I'm all sanctified in that, but I did try to give the kids a principle they were proud of. And if I messed up or made a mistake, you know what? It wasn't because it was anything personal. It was just a flat out honest mistake. And I tried to exude that, not only with myself, but I did that a lot with parents, students, and staff as well. Because we're not perfect, but we all have a forgiving nature deep inside. So I tried to personify that it's okay to make mistakes, just don't make it again. You know, and all that about being Mr. Bolden is pretty stern. Well, maybe, but if they really looked at what I did overall, I did things to get people's attention. That was pretty much the things that I did, was get people's attention. Then once I got your attention, then I could work with your mom and dad and little Joe or Susie. That we're working for the common good, which is best for your student. And once I had the parents on board with me, this job really became something I can really work with now. Because you gotta have the parents trust in you. You have to. Otherwise, you're really fighting an uphill battle. But they saw me consistently from my days at Northwest to my days at Harmon when I was there, when some knew me from there, and now being over here. Yeah, Mr. Bolden's pretty consistent. And that's the one thing I always try to be very conscientious of, being consistent with my kids. And if I messed up, guess what? I'll be the first one to get on that phone and say, you know, Mr. and Mrs. So, hey, I made the wrong decision. Based on what I knew, I thought I was making the right decision, but I was wrong. Please accept my apology, and we will make sure that we do things by the books to correct that situation with your child. So that was me, because I did make mistakes, but for the most part, I didn't make a lot of them. But for the most part, they saw that consistency out of me, and they saw that I was trying to be honest as I could. Right, so the question is about me being stern. How did I become stern? And the first thing I tell you, I wasn't a Joe Clark. I didn't walk around with the blowhorn and the bat and all that. But how that all started was many, many, many years ago, playing football. I had the kind of coaches, you either did the job or you didn't. No excuses. If you want to play, you had to do your job. No excuses. So that started the mindset when I was just in the 7th, 8th grade. And then, of course, as I got in high school and we won championships, well, you don't win championships by playing around. You did it by having kids who did their job. And you had to be very focused and very disciplined. That's where I got that from. So that was the embryonic stages of that. Now, how did that transfer to me going to school? Very easily. I knew at times I had to be very disciplined about things I want to do, because when you go to college, no one's telling you when to come in. You go where you want to go, do what you want to do. So my very first year at Prairie View, I almost flunked out. I can laugh about it now, but it was a very serious issue with my mother. when she got that letter from the dean. And I said, I got a free ride with this scholarship. Am I going to blow it because I don't know when to come in at night? So I had to go back to my old discipline with football. I got that straightened out in my life and graduated from Prairie View, magna cum laude. So that was a big deal in my house and with me still to this day. And going to the classroom, you do the work. There's no ifs, ands, or about it. No, you're going to do the work. Now, if I got to work with you a little bit longer than the rest of them, fine, but we're going to do the work. So that transferred to the classroom. And how did that transfer to me being a principal? Well, if I had a kid that was struggling discipline-wise, I was the most understanding person in the world, but everything has a limit. And the kids had to know what that limit was. I'm going to break my back for you, but I'm not going to break it for nothing. And that's what I tried to transfer to them, and they started to get it about me. So I would work with them, and there would be times the teacher would call me down to the classroom, not to discipline a kid, but I had built trust with that kid, and I'd be the only one they listened to. Now, I'm not bragging about that point, but I think to be effective, you have to put the time in. And time is more than just what the hours are at the school. There's been many times when I was here at Schlagle, my goodness, 6, 7 o'clock, I'd be here with parents. And not anything about discipline, just working with that kid and the parent. And that was something that when I left here, all 13 years later, it was hard on me. I mean, I'm crying. I said, oh man, I'll miss my school. Because you know what ham and eggs and all that mean, how that ties in. So when you said Bolden, you said Schlagle. When you said Schlagle, you said Bolden. I mean, we were just meshed together because I was so much involved with the school and gave so much of myself to the school that the work really wasn't work. It was a labor of love. And I hope it showed in the way that the improvements that I did make when I was here, and by the way, it looks so much better when I was here now, back then. And the way that I attended the kids' games, and the way that if a kid had something traumatic that happened in their family, I would attend that family's funeral, and just things like that. Again, not boasting, but I wanted them to know I'm more than just a principal. I believe in you. I want to be more than just that person sitting in that office. I'm someone you can come to if something is on your mind. But never, never, never in all the years I was here did I do anything behind a parent's back. I let them know that I was talking with that child. But if the kid swore me to secrecy, I would say okay. But I always let the parents know. And that's how I built that trust with the parent, because they want to have somebody to trust in too. So I made that a point of interest for me coming here, no matter where it was Northwest or Schlagle, that I wanted to be part of my MO, is gaining my parents' trust and being very honest with them, but at the same time fair with everybody as much as I could, according to the guidelines and rules set forth by the school district. Well, it's funny how I got the name, or the nickname, Mr. 10 Days. They would say it behind my back, and I'd be walking down the hall, 10 days, and the kid was scary. And I said, well, is that a new code or something? What is that 10-day thing? So finally I hustled one of the kids up. I said, and I forgot the kid's name. I said, man, what's this 10-day thing? I said, oh, I'm going to do with the kid how he reacted. Oh, Mr. Bolden, you know what them kids be saying. I said, no, I don't know what they be saying. I said, what are they saying? Well, Mr. Bolden, you came here, you were putting kids out of school left and right. No, I really wasn't. But the theory behind the 10 days was to get their attention. I probably, in all the times I gave a kid 10 days, I maybe had 3 or 4 that actually served the 10 days. And they were some bad actors. But the rest of them, I was able to negotiate it. And when I negotiated, mom and dad would come out and they think Mr. Bolden was the best thing since sliced bread, because my intent was to have them come in and talk with me and maybe come up with even a plan about their child's behavior and make that kid part of that plan. And so that's how it all kind of started, about that 10-day. And yes, I would throw 10 days on you. If you talk about fighting, really? Okay, 10 days. You over there watching the fight? Okay, 10 days. Well, things change. Today, I can no longer do those kinds of things, but I never abused it, if you know what I meant. I never abused it, but I did use it as a tactic to get your attention. And that's why the kids, even today, and I keep up with some on Facebook, and the first thing they say, hey, Mr. 10 Days. Or I might see them at a Walmart, and they'll say, Principal, let me take a selfie with you. I got to show everybody I saw Mr. 10 Days. So I take pictures with them, but that also told me that they appreciated what I tried to do. Because coming here at that time, there's no reflection upon the prior administration, it was kind of rough. Every time you look up, there was a fight of some type. Somebody was getting out of hand. It might be a fire here, a fire there. So coming in as the Pope was not going to get it. I had to kind of show them a side of me that I didn't like, where I could be stern with them, but at the same time cared very much for them. So yeah, I was glad I got that 10-day phase out of me, or they allowed me to get that out of me, where now I'm able to sit down with mom and dad or the child and do my normal thing as a principal that I would do. But yeah, coming here for the first time, that first year, I was definitely Mr. 10 Days. But again, it was to get their attention, to bring some sense of order and some discipline in the school. And it really paid off big time because the kids did get better, the staff got better, the morale got better. And the parents, once again, you saw that pride in Schlagle Nation that they had. So yeah, it was rough starting out, but boy, did it pay off big dividends later. What exactly is the 10 days? I came here not playing. 10 days was out of school. And I went, and I gotta tell you, I hate admitting this, but I went at the student code of conduct. If I could have gone 15, I would have gone 15, but I couldn't. So 10 was as far as I could take it, so I took it to 10. And of course, everybody was like daring me. No, you're not gonna do that. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. So when that first couple of 2 or 3 actually served their 10 days, or some might have served 7 or 8, if they called in, I always let them back. But they had to call in. That kind of let me know you really want to come back. You kind of let me know that you're ready to make a change in your life. So I can say very rarely the kid served 10 days. But if mom and dad picked up that phone, or the kid picked up that phone, and maybe 3 days later, and they're willing to come in and talk to me, we come up with an understanding, then I said, okay, I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna hold you to that. So that's how it all got started. It was a game changer with me back then. Would I do that today? No, I couldn't do it today. But at the time, it was necessary at the time because the school was really pretty much a place I wouldn't want to go. It was a place I wouldn't want to teach, and it was a place I wouldn't even want my own child to come to. But by the time we got things where we wanted, with great staff and parental support, my own son even graduated from FL Schlagle High School. And I think that's saying a lot, that I wanted my own son, or he wanted to come over and be a part of the Schlagle experience. So I think you get no better notoriety than that, having your own child want to come up to your school. Did I see the numbers change in terms of fights and things of that sort? But keep in mind now, 10 days was just one part of the strategy. It wasn't the strategy. You follow what I'm saying? Because along with that, getting their attention, now you have to come up with programs of support to support what you're really trying to implement in the school in terms of self-discipline, having a need or a hunger to be finally educated. Because one of the things I always challenge the kids on was this. So what do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? Doing what? So you think by you skipping class right now, that's helping you become this famous lawyer or this great mechanic that you say you want to own your own business? And how are you going to own this business when you can't get along with people? You won't have any clients. So when you throw those kind of questions and make them think about it, it gave them a different perspective about what they were doing, and it gave them even a different perspective about me as a principal. That I do have their best, for lack of a better word, I do have their concern. I want them to do well, but I want them to think outside the box. Stop thinking like you're 15, 16 years old, and think about how you would be at 26. Are you still going to be at home with mom? You still going to do this? Still asking mom for a handout? Or are you going to now bring something to mom and make her proud of you, buy her a car or a home? Are you going to do that? So you'd be surprised when you challenge kids in such a way as that, as corny as it sounds, they like to hear that. Because that puts them in a reality zone where, yeah, I would like to do that for my mom or my dad or for my family. Because I would often share with them my journey because, like I said, grew up very poor in Waco. Matter of fact, we were so poor, we didn't know we were poor. That's how poor we were. But I came from a loving home. And my mother, she's passed away now, but she was definitely my biggest cheerleader, my biggest critic. She was a mama. And I always wanted to make her proud of me. Even as a grown man, I wanted her to be proud of me till the very day she died. And when you have that as in the back of your head, that incentive about how you want kids to become successful in life, you want them to see the reality and what their possibilities could be. And I don't know if that was really discussed with our kids back then, where I really, if I visit a classroom or if I even evaluate a teacher, I want to make sure that you always give that student respect. And even when they did something or said something not so smart, you stay above the fray. Because that was one of the things that really helped me. Like I told you, I've been cussed out, I've been called racial slurs, and yet I still call them Mr. and Mrs. And they didn't understand that. I just cussed this man out, and he still called me Mr. Johnson or Mr. Jackson. Yeah, I did. And then when the kid or the parent, I've been cussed out by parents too, but for the most part, they really work with me. And then a lot of times, because you were consistent and you always still showed respect, they would call me sometime 2 weeks later and apologize to me. And I thought that was huge. And at the same time, I'm learning now about how to work with my parents. You stay above the fray. And that's where some of that mentorship that you asked me about earlier, where that came from, is always stay professional. Always don't let people take you out of who you are. I'm not one who cusses out people. That's not who I am. So don't let people take you there. So those are one of the things I remember as one of my mentors talked to me and showed me that I never did. And that's one of the things I know to help me be, if I can say it, be successful to a certain extent with my parents and students and the schools. Yeah. The reason why the OSS is something that you don't want to happen, because those are days out of the school. And a lot of school districts still depend on grant money, and part of that grant money is attendance. If you have poor attendance, why should I give it to you? Your kids don't even come to school. No wonder you can't get your grades up or your test scores up. So the theory behind that I certainly understand, and I'd support, by the way. Keep the kids in school. Anything short of something that's deadly, we should be smart enough to figure out something to keep a kid in school. And I have nothing but the greatest admiration for today's administrators and teachers in that classroom, because I know what it would look like back in the day when I was teaching and coaching and being an administrator, and seeing some of the behaviors that I have seen now is quite disturbing. And that's even more why you need a different type of administrator, a different type of teacher for today's kids. It's just not black and white. Kid said something stupid or not so smart, and now put them out. No, go back and look at what got this kid to this point. And that's the thing now that I would have to look in deeper if I was still working as an administrator. What's setting this kid off? Why is he or she coming to us this way and they just left home? Well, we don't know what went home. And a lot of times, as you well know, school is the safest place for a lot of kids. It's the best place where they get a 3-square meal. And we try to support that kid as much as possible, because a lot of times we don't know the home situation. And that's why those relationships that I alluded to earlier, that's why you try to build those relationships so they can have somebody they can go to. Because if you're not careful, that very same kid that you saw in the corner, maybe with a sense of depression, might be that same kid that you hear about committing suicide. And you might be that only outlet for that kid. You don't know. So that relationship piece, thank God, even back in my day when I was teaching and coaching and being in administration, hasn't changed. It's all about the relationships. Because if you believe in me, man, I'm gonna work. I'm gonna do the best job I can. And I would like to think that today's educators are putting that same type of belief system in our kids today. Because kids want to belong. That's why you have the gangs. Because the mom and dad or school or coach won't take me in as I am, then I know what? I know these guys over here will, or these girls over here will. And that's the wrong message we want to send to kids. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, because we're so cut and dry with rules and all that, we send kids to the gangs instead of just welcoming them in, letting them make their mistakes, and then work from there to give them a better situation so they don't make that same mistake again. And have a little bit more, to be a little bit more goal-oriented, because a lot of kids don't even know how to make goals. You know, you got to wake up with a sense of purpose every day. What is it I want to accomplish today? That was one of the things that if I go back and just think about myself as a kid growing up, I knew I wanted to go to college. But here's the thing about it. I didn't know when I'd graduate. I knew I'd go, but I didn't have the real confidence that I would really graduate. And it wasn't until I started thinking about setting goals that I learned from playing sports about setting goals that really solidified my thinking about, hey, I can graduate. I can go to school board in 1 or 2 years, and before I think about dropping out, I can at least say I went to college. But now it went from, hey, I know I can at least went to college. It went from that to, no, I can graduate. I can actually graduate and get a career with my diploma. So it's all about relationships. It's all about setting goals for young people and helping them understand what those goals are. Well, you know, that transformation for me, going back to how I did things with the 10-day and all that, to where I ended up, because when I left this school district, I went to Kansas City, Missouri, and I was principal there for about 6 years. And I had made a transformation. The old blood and guts Bolden that people probably knew had made a transformation. And that was good for my kids, and it was good for me. And the reason why, because kids like to be hands-on with stuff. You can tell me about it, but when you give me a chance to experience it, that's a whole different dynamic. So what I pushed and what I strictly, definitely supported, I wanted my teachers out in the building. If you had a particular class and you were teaching this in English or whatever, take those kids, get them off campus, take them to the colleges, see what they're doing in drama or theater, see what they're doing. Or take them to some Ford auto shop where the kids can actually see if the assembly's going on. And now they start to say, you know, boy, they make good money and they're doing good things. So when they see that, they start to act less uninterested, because now they know that you have something to offer. Because kids are there pretty sharp, as you know. If you don't give them that carrot in front of them, they absolutely would tune you out. They have to know that you have something to offer. So that's where you come up with your committees that's composed of teachers, counselors, and students that help you forge out this plan. So what can we do in all classes, in all levels, to get our kids off campus, to do things constructively on sites where they can actually see and learn, hey, I see myself as doing this one day. I was very fortunate, and share this story with you. Northeast High School was my last school, where I was privy to be there 6 years. They had I'm just going to say, for lack of a better term, a law and order type of class, all right? They actually had a genuine resimulation of an actual courtroom. And it was something to see, to go up there and see that. You see where the judge would be, You see where the jury would be. You see where the audience. I say, man, this is fantastic, but it wasn't being utilized. So I got with the staff and the students, and we started making more use of that. And the kids were able to see how law actually works out in the court system. And we actually invited judges over to actually reside over some of the cases that we had, and it was just an experience. And the kids appreciated that. So we got better about meeting the needs of the kids. We got better about, where is the kids' interest? We know they want to know the math. There's no getting around that. But at the same time, how can that math be applicable to what they say they're interested in? Because like kids say, just like today still, no, I got to do math when I want to do this. And if we're not good at tying that in, then we fail them. And it's not so much a teacher's fault or administrator's fault. It's the idea of everybody coming together with the main point of making those students part of that committee. And not only just part of the committee, make sure they have a voice. Because when the kids feel they really have a voice, man, they really start to listen to you. Because it does have to go both ways. I want you to listen to me, okay? I also have to listen to you, always in a respectful manner. So that was just one of the things that time and experience has taught me over the years. There's no way that I could be a principal of school today the way I did years back when I first came to Schlagle. I'd have to change. I'd have to change. When I say change, not because of my standards. Standards have always been high, but my clientele has changed. And I have to meet them again where they are to get them where they need to be in order to be successful. An IEP, that's an individual education plan. And you usually get that in that's a very good question. I'm not sure how I'm gonna tie that in. You usually get that in a special education type of a setting where each kid learns differently. And because of that fact, you had to come up with an education plan, individual education plan for that student so that he or she can be successful in the classroom. It could be that student might have to be read to more than other kids. They might have to have more hands-on, more than other kids. And that helps them be more successful, which when a kid is successful in school, their attendance goes up. So, but what I did, that's an excellent question. I took that past special education. I came up with an IASP, Individual Academic Success Plan. And I implemented that over to Northeast when I was over there. And what that was, I just took that idea, because I was very much in support of special ed, and I would take notes and see how things were done. I liked a lot of what I saw. I said, why don't we take this and put this for every student? So my teachers, they didn't too much care for it when I first started because they thought it was more paperwork to do. But if you saw the big picture, you talk to every student, what's the best way that you learn? Do you need more lecture? Do you need more hands-on? And what the teachers did is a quick survey of each class. They saw that their kids, they like hands-on stuff. So the teacher changed their lesson plans to meet the kids' interests. And the kids got better with their attendance. The kids got better with the academic part. Now, I'm not saying every kid made straight A's, but it improved academically because of what I had learned in the special education department with the IEPs. I said, let's take this, let's blow this thing up, make it school-wide. So by the time I left Northeast, every student in that school had an ISAP, every last one of them. And the parents, because it was new, they were very much in support of it once they saw what it was. Because what it involved was this. Once the kid saw what the IASP was, which derived from the IEP, the student and the teacher both had say-so in it. And they would sign it. The teacher telling the student, because you pointed out this is how you learn best, I'm going to do more of these things with you. And because the student now has a voice, they said, because you're doing these things for me, I'm going to guarantee I'm going to do these things too. Now, a contract is only sometimes as good as a paper, meaning here's where I'm going. Was it a perfect solution? No, but it gave us somewhat of a guidance or a foundation, because I could always hold that kid accountable. Because if that kid got in trouble, of course I might end up in the principal's office. And the first thing I'd ask to do, hey, where's your ISCP? And I look at it. I say, okay, now you promised your teacher you would do this. You signed it. Nobody put a gun to your head. You signed this. So why aren't you keeping up with your word? And anywhere I've ever gone, I've tried to be a man of integrity. If I said it, I'm going to do it. And they knew that about me. So they knew I wanted them to be the same way. If you sign your name on it, I'm going to hold you to that. And so we were able to help a lot of kids who were once failures in the classroom, now have some sense of success. And that's what being in education is all about. Show that kid some semblance of success, and for the most part, they can do the rest of it. So the IEP was very, very instrumental with the special education, and it influenced me a lot as an administrator with my overall culture in my school, where everybody had their own plan, everybody, about how they learn, what doesn't work for me, and they fill out those little surveys, and our teachers paid very good attention to them, and they changed the way they taught. They changed their lesson plans based on what the kid was telling them. But that all started from the IEP, that I was privy to be present at during those IEP meetings, because at the IEP meeting, you always had to have an administrator at those meetings, not necessarily at the principal, but always had to be an administrator. So I was very fortunate to catch a lot of those myself, saw how the dynamics, how that all worked. And I must say I stole a couple of those ideas for the betterment of the students overall. Good question. Well, you know, and I mean this honestly, and anyone who knows Doug Bolden, really, they know I'm telling the truth. You have to love kids. And because you love kids, you're willing to not tolerate necessarily, but have high expectations of kids, even though they don't always make the right decisions. So what has kept me in this, the question is, could I have made more money doing other things? Absolutely, absolutely. But to see, and that is not to sound too cliches, to see that light bulb go off in that kid's mind, to want to get better and do better and make better decisions, there's no paycheck in the world that's better than that. And then the big payoff, because I'm an old man now, to see my kids out there in the community with their own businesses, doing things on volunteer basis. Some are lawyers, some have their own businesses now. There's nothing more gratifying to see that transpire during the time that you were principal. And believe me, I've even got a few things free because some old students have said, oh, don't, Mr. Bolden, your money's no good here, and I didn't put up a fight. But being serious, that's why you do what you do, to see the kids, because you know when that kid has gotten better in the decisions that they make, it impacts their family. It impacts their brothers and sisters. It impacts their own families that they have. So overall, when you see that, it's not necessarily something that you did individually, but it's nice to know you had a little bit to do with that. And the one thing that my God in heaven has shown me, that I didn't pick this, he chose this for me. And how do I know that? Because I loved it. It was never really a job for me. And I would go home, my wife would tell you, I said, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. Because I love what I'm doing. I absolutely love it. When I would see back in the day when this place was rocking and rolling and we were winning championships in basketball, to walk in that gym and see it rocking and rolling in there, I said, are you kidding me? And they wonder why I say I'm Mr. Bolden, the extremely proud principal of FL Schlagle High School. Oh yeah, this is why I do it. And yeah, it was, that's why I did it for 40 some odd years. So even when my time came to an end here, and they said the magic word, Mr. Bolden, I know you're retired, but the kids need you over here. I said, well, man, why did he say the kids need you over here? Because I knew I was going to fall for it. So that was my Achilles heel, if I can use that term. You're always going to get me when they say the kids need you. So I try to answer the call, but wherever I've gone, I've always prayed on it. So Lord, this is the move you want me to make, because I can't make it without you. Because I know if I'm going to be successful, I know I need you back there pushing me. So it's all worked out. God's been very good to me in the decision that he wanted me to make. So any success, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, any success that I've made is because I know what he's done for me and the vision that he's given me to play out for the students, because I know for a fact that God put people in education to take care of his kids, bottom line. And I'm just so humbled that he thought that I could do something and have an impact on kids, because I'm just blessed every day when I see old staff members or I see my kids from years gone by. Man, that's worth $1 million. I can't tell you what that means to me. Yeah.